Margaret Prescod is an activist and radio host who was born in Barbados. She takes on the news of the day with critical perspectives offered by guests otherwise ignored by an increasingly consolidated media. Margaret's activism began in the mid-1980s when she started organizing against a serial killer of black women known as the Grim Sleeper. Margaret works with the Global Women's Strike, which is a grassroots network with national coordinations in a number of countries. It campaigns for the return of military budgets to the community, beginning with women, the main carers in every country on the planet.
No, I'm here. Yeah, thank you for that. You actually made me a little younger than I actually am. Started organizing in the mid-'80s. If only it were so. It goes a bit further back than that. And I am an immigrant from the global South. I grew up in pre-colonial village. I'm not a city girl. And the poverty that we experience in those villages, I mean, poverty is horrible and horrendous everywhere. In the global South, it takes on quite another face. And for those of you who remember what it was like in Haiti after the earthquake, where people, for the first time, it seemed, recognized the most impoverished place in the Western Hemisphere, in the middle of the Caribbean region, so close to Florida, the first Black Republic that led the way for the emancipation of those of us enslaved, not only in the Caribbean region, but made the way for the Louisiana Purchase and the ending of slavery also in the United States. And I want to start with Haiti because when Bolivar was struggling for the liberation of Latin America, he had to flee to Haiti a few times because the revolution had already happened. The revolution was in 1804. And the Haitians sent fighters back with Bolivar to fight for the liberation of Latin America. And at one point, a story I heard recently, actually told to me by the Venezuelan foreign minister, who turns out to be an historian, is that one of the stories of Bolivar is that on one trip he went to Haiti and Pétion gave him 1,000 rifles and said, you go back and work for the liberation of Latin America, but you have to make a promise, which is that you have to stand against slavery. Bolivar went back and he tried, but Bolivar's coalition, some of whom were slaveholders, said there's no way in hell we're going to stand against slavery. So the next time Bolivar had to flee to Haiti, you can imagine he was a bit embarrassed about what happened. And what the Haitians did, they said, you know what? We're going to give you 5,000 rifles, and you go back and you liberate Latin America. And the story is that that gave the impetus for Bolivar to go and liberate Latin America. But the Haitians said, you cannot tell this story publicly because of negotiations, international negotiations. You might remember that the United States put an economic embargo on Haiti. France demanded reparations out of Haiti for the loss of their slave labor, but also for the repayment of the Revolutionary War. And it was only after Pétion died that the Venezuelans were actually able to tell this story. I tell that because it was an international event, and that tells us something. It was an international event led by people who were slaves and who didn't have a pot to piss in, but who defeated the most powerful army of its day, which was Napoleon's army. And the Haitians are still being punished to this day. So then you wonder why Haiti is impoverished. Because Haiti cannot succeed. Because if Haiti succeeded, each and every one of us in this room would know that all of us, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in Latin America, whether it is in Bangladesh, that we have the power to be able to win, and they don't want us to think that we can win. So I hold up Haiti because in February of next year will mark the 10-year anniversary of the US-backed coup against the first democratically elected president of Haiti. And the Haitians have always said, we are working to continue our revolution, and I would hope that this gathering today is working to continue the revolution in this country. And with that in mind, I can tell you some personal story, being hungry as a child and all of that, but I think, I'm hoping that this event this weekend marks a movement that's trying to get itself together. And in trying to get itself together, we have to look at ourselves with a critical eye and see how is it that we can find our way across the divides towards each other, because too many of us underestimate the enemy that we are up against. It is powerful, it is a killer, and a lot of us in this country know that, and the California prisoner hunger strikers who went for 59 days, they certainly know it. Okay? So it's serious business we've got to get down to. We can't be glossing anything over. Because when we gloss things over, people die. And you know what? If we do that, that blood is in our hands. And our network in the Global Women's Strike, we've spent the last, 40-something years, really, it's been that long, building a global, grassroots, non-party, non-aligned network, not only here in the United States, but also in places like Peru, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Chhattisgarh, India, working with the Dalit and other women, and Ireland, and Haiti and other places. And it's been hard work. But when we began, we knew we had to be international. We knew that we had to have autonomy among us, because some of us are queer, some of us are people of color. They're the men from Payday Men's Network. Because we're a women's network, we need the men. We're working with men. And we don't have allies, by the way. That thing drives me absolutely crazy. We have compañeras, and we draw out the connections among us. It's not about links. Links are weak. Okay, it's like the sausage link, the little thing? It can break at any moment. Okay, that's not what we need right now. We need to draw out the connections, because we all need each other on the basis of our autonomy. It is not horizontal, but autonomy recognizes that everybody has to have a voice. So we have our Women of Color organization, we have the queer organization, the U.S. Prostitutes Collective, and other sex worker organizations, women with disabilities, etc., etc. And it is on the basis of autonomy that we build a unity. Now, I don't want to get into theoretical debate, because a lot of times that really doesn't get us anywhere. It's about really trying to build a movement. And one of the things that I think we all have to address in this movement is that not only labor unions, but the left and feminists generally have been obsessed with the point of production. You're a worker if you're at the point of production. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That leaves out most of us in the world. Excuse me. Most of the people in the global south are not at the bloody point of production. That doesn't mean that they're not working. That doesn't mean that capitalism isn't sucking the blood out of them. We have got to look at who we define as a worker. And it is not a moral question. Excuse me. When we talk about the Haitians being impoverished, okay, some people like to look at it in a moral way. But all of us work for capitalism. We're all exploited by capitalism. Not only those of us who are at the point of production. If you're a mother on welfare, you are a worker and you are exploited by capitalism. And the whole welfare rights movement, I had the honor of working with Beulah Saunders and Johnny Tillman, the welfare rights movement that helped to train me, as well as the black movement and the civil rights movement in this country, to bust open that whole concept that if you're not in the factory, or if you're not a wage slave, that somehow you're not a worker and you're outside the point of production. It runs throughout our movement. So when we talk about poor people, we act like they're not working. They're some of the hardest workers ever, like Tupac says, trying to make $1 out of 15 cents or 59 cents, whatever the hell it is. We're all working. Don't even go for it. Don't even buy it. Because they're stealing our resources. And we want it back. You know why? If we don't have it back, they're going to occupy Haiti. They're going to try and bomb and detain and sites and everything else, and people in the global south know damn well that they're the first ones they're going to come for. And if those of us in the United States don't stop this killing machine, they're going to die, and we're going to be held accountable. You know, so let's not just do the same thing again and again and again and make the same mistakes again and again and again. Let's get past the fetish of the point of production. Let us redefine who a worker is and include all of us who are mothers who are unwaged workers. Number one. Another thing is that the NGOs, I have to say something about the NGOs, because too many young people are coming of age thinking that NGOs are the movement. We're suffering from an NGOization of the movement. An NGO is not a movement. Haiti has more NGOs per square mile than any other nation on this planet, and it's the most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, so I appreciated what Sherry said about not the aim being going, you know, to get a grant. I'm not saying don't go for the grant. Get the money any damn way we can. But we better make a distinction between the movement and an NGO. And I've seen too many movements, from the anti-rape movement, to the domestic violence movement, to the anti-poverty movement, to the movement trying to get political prisoners even out of jail, that have become an industry. Yes, they have. Okay, and become more concerned about their grant and their money and building their own organization as opposed to building a movement. We have got to cut it out. And we have a good example of that. And I want to raise up the California prisoner hunger strike. And those who are inside as an example. There's a lot of leadership coming from people who are inside. Are we recognizing it? California prisoners in solitary confinement, a lot of them began a hunger strike that was 30,000 strong. Where in any movement in this country have we seen anybody go on any damn strike 30,000 strong? And they did it from behind prison walls. What can we learn from them? Why is it that the mothers, some of whom are with us today, holding up the leaflet, Dolores, who are going to be speaking tomorrow, Mary Sutton, who's here on No More Jails, but these mothers who get no damn support when they have to drive from Southern California to Oregon to be able to visit their children, and when they're out there organizing 2 and 3 and 4 times a week during this stuff, the funded NGOs don't stop what they're doing and say, you know what? We have a responsibility, okay, to make sure that they get the resources that they need. The prisoners, Black, Native American, Latino, and white. And they tried to discredit the white guy, saying that at one time he was in the Aryan Nation. I don't give one damn that one time he was in the Aryan Nation. Right now, he is organizing with brown prisoners a bloody hunger strike that he says is not only for those of us who are in solitary confinement, but for prisoners in Palestine and throughout the world and all oppressed people throughout the world. Okay? So don't try and discredit the guy because of what he did, 30 years ago. But the other significant thing they did, they issued a call for the cessation of hostilities among the races. You know what that means inside prison walls? You know what that means on the streets in inner cities when you've got our young warriors so frustrated that they're going into what they call gangs? This is leadership. We need to get these guys out. We need to get Russell Maroon Schultz out. His daughter's sitting right there in front of me. We need that leadership. What are we going to do about it once we leave here. There's a lot more that I wanted to say. I don't have the time to say it. I got a minute, you're telling me. But I gotta say one other thing. There's a difference. We're a women's network, but we work with everybody, including the men, as I said earlier. There's a difference between women's rights activists like Johnny Tillman, Beulah Saunders, okay, just to name a couple, and Gloria Steinem. We gotta understand that difference. I remember when the feminist movement was coming up, and I remember when they sold out mothers on welfare. Yes. Because their idea of liberation was a job outside the home, and screw these Black and Puerto Rican and Native American lazy, so-called lazy women who don't want to do nothing. Excuse me, do nothing? Who are they? You know, what planet are they on? There's a raging debate going on now, including in the Guardian newspaper in London, about if feminism actually helped to promote neoliberalism. We really got to look at that. That doesn't mean you're anti-woman or anti-anything else. It means that in every movement, we have to be responsible for the points of references that we choose. And every movement could go in any damn direction. Capital will incorporate any damn body. If we didn't know that, we knew it by the time Condoleezza Rice turned up. They don't, you know what I'm saying? They'll try to keep us down. They'll be racist, they'll be homophobic, and they'll be all the rest of it. But if they think they can make money off of some queer people, or off some people of color, or make war, they are ready to be inclusive. So don't even fall for that. Don't let them off the hook. And don't say that it's patriarchy because you want to let capital off the hook. They use patriarchy. Okay? So let's not be fooled. Let's not put the blinders on. So, where are we going now? What are we going to do about all of this? Part of what we're doing, in addition to lifting up and working to get out the prisoners inside and supporting their family members, we want a living wage for carers. Yes, we do, because we're workers, and we're sick and tired of y'all running, excuse me, I don't mean y'all in this room. I'm using the big y'all, okay? Talking about the working poor. Who is the damn working poor? We're all working. We have to watch that kind of language that we're using because it reinforces the fact that we're a charity case. We're no damn charity case. This empire was built off of our back. And if you didn't know it, look at those who were enslaved. It didn't only build capital in this country, it built the whole damn international structure that cotton down there in Mississippi. All right? At the same time that over in Manchester, they were talking about abolition movement. We're very happy about that. But at the same time, we know a lot of money was being made in those factories in Manchester and Liverpool over what was going on in the Mississippi Valley. So they started out global. We are global, and we're not going to fall for that old stuff. So we got a petition. People get very nervous when you say petition because, oh, you're a reformist. We have some anarchists in Oregon tell us we're not going to sign your petition because it's reformist. No. Excuse me. When Gwen Moore, who herself is a welfare mother and had her child taken from her when she was a welfare mother and a student, has a bill in Congress, the Rise Out of Poverty Act, which is the first thing that we have seen since welfare reform that talks about ending poverty. What choice do those of us at the bottom have but to try to make sure that we campaign and support it? So we want all y'all to sign that petition in support of the Rise Act. You know, I'm seeing the woman over there, Pat Gowans from the Welfare Warriors in Milwaukee. It was Pat's work that pushed Gwen Moore to introduce that bill. Let me tell you, Pat Gowans is no reformist. She's a revolutionary to the damn bone. So I don't even want to hear it. One instrument isn't going to bring the revolution. We got to do it like women do housework. We got to multitask. We can't generation know. So y'all please, all you revolutionaries in this room, all you anti-capitalists, I'm anti-capitalist to the bone, please sign our petition, go over to the table, we're going to set up some computers, because I'd like every last one of y'all to sign that, the petition that Mary Sutton has about no more jails, and I'm sure Sherry might have some, etc. So I'm going to wrap it up. But I think that we're all being criminalized. Survival is being criminalized. We have an opportunity now to do something in what we used to call the belly of the beast. That's where we are. And when I travel, because there are organizations, you know, that are built, that are part of our network in the global south, people are really pissed off with those of us in the United States. Don't even care, you're part of the movement. But what the hell are y'all doing? Why are you allowing this stuff to happen to us? You organizing for welfare, you're organizing against poverty, that's all well and good, but what does that mean for me? What does that mean for us here on the ground? We have to start thinking in this way, looking with a critical eye at our movement, and using this occasion to seize the moment and do something different. Don't keep doing what we've always been doing and hoping that we're going to have a different outcome. Thank you very much, all power.